reporting on the games you love by people who love to game. The MMO Reporter Network. Hey everybody, I'm here at the Firefall presentation. I went to the presentation yesterday, but I get a pretty good chance here to talk about Firefall with some pretty fantastic people. So here we go. We're going to start taking a look at Firefall.
Our motto is, change everything, create fun. I came out of Blizzard, I was team lead for World of Warcraft. One of the reasons I left is I just didn't want to do World of Warcraft for the rest of my life, or StarCraft again, or anything else. And I actually didn't even want to conduct business the same way anymore. I thought that, there's a new way to make an independent dev now that online games are around, where you can have a recurring stream and you're not dependent on a publisher, right? So we wanted to change, we try to change everything about how we approach designing games, how we approach developing games. We never want to create something that's kind of been done before. So that's why this sort of ripe territory of a massive PvE MMO shooter was so appealing to us. We said, listen, the technology is going to be at a place where the servers will have enough capacity to do this, and bandwidth will be high enough. Everyone will have broadband by then, cable. Back on WoW days, we were testing on modems, to make this possible. And so, we set about doing this, and there was no particular pattern or recipe to follow that was successful, right? You've had a couple of attempts, mostly more on the RPG side of things, where it was a combination of, are your levels okay?
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Okay. Where it was a combination of, hey, let's add a gun to a RPG setting and roll a bunch of dice while you shoot. Well, I think that's where a lot of the early experiments failed, because once you put a gun in a player's hands, they want that pixel-perfect accuracy. Their expectation for combat changes completely. So we said, let's make it a shooter first, and then selectively add MMO elements. But which elements do we add, and how do we add them? These were unknown questions. Even on WoW, we had EverQuest, a very successful game to look at and to say, okay, these core concepts work. We're just going to add our unique blend with questing and everything else. And with this game, there is no basis. So we invented a very risky new process, risky in the sense that after a year of development, we decided to let people play the game. Yeah. And MMOs take 3 to 5 years to make. So you can imagine how early that is in the dev process. And we did it because we thought that it would be, that the way that other people were making these big MMOs that were trying to do new things is absolutely insane. And I'll tell you why. Because they're like, we have a new idea, we're going to sink $200 million into it, and we're not going to let anybody play it for the last 3 months. And if they have any suggestions, it's too late, we just got to slam it out the door. Right? And if it works, great. If it doesn't, well, you're out $200 million. And we thought, this is insanity, right? This is not a good way to do it. So we said, let's share it early. And because there's no longer, we have a digital distribution model, and there's no longer this wall between the gamer and the game maker, we knitted them really close together. Our community is one of the most loyal, intense communities I've ever seen, and we're all posting in the forums all the time and getting ideas and making mistakes and admitting when we make mistakes. And then we sort of developed this relationship to say, hey, we're going to show you stuff really early. It's like being in the kitchen with us and tasting the soup before it's seasoned, and you're going to help us finish it. And that way, we learn quickly which ideas worked and didn't. And we don't fully polish something out there and do it. Like this is our third retake of the progression system, but it's not like we completely polished each one before scrapping it and trying a new one. We launched them early to get the feedback, so that if we had to redo it, which we did, and it was always for the better, we weren't throwing away a bunch of work. There's a lot of code reuse in the background. We're changing things. Since we didn't take it 100% and we got early feedback, we're able to guide the system better. This is a huge risk because a lot of gaming press and a lot of customers aren't used to this. Yeah. In fact, I don't know anybody who really, we've seen some imitators lately say, oh yeah, we listen to our customers, but nobody takes action quite the way we do, and so our users are always like, oh my God, they really listen to us. All the things I've mentioned are in this, overhaul. And, but for users who aren't used to that, they feel like I'm coming into an incomplete game and this beta is taking forever, right? And actually, this game hasn't taken any longer than any other MMO to make. We've just let you in a lot earlier. And in fact, the progress has been faster than the last MMO I worked on. So, you know, that's one thing we want to change. We want to change the way games are made because we want to make it funner for our customers to build a loyal base and less risky for us to try innovations, because that's what we want to do. We want to innovate as a company. But we also see an opportunity for the whole industry to innovate. We want to create new standards, new practices for doing this, and encourage indie gaming, small dev teams, because they're the ones that can take that risk, and we want to provide them tools and ways that they can get their game heard and everything else, so they can promote their game and get users to try it. That's why we do Stage 5. That's why we started League for Gamers, you know, because we want to give gamers a voice. We want the whole industry to have this sort of wellspring of ideas to feed the big publishers. I mean, they can't take that risk anymore. They're putting so much money, like $200 million, $100 million, you know, $50 million in marketing. They have to stick with what they know works. But the problem is, if they don't have any new ideas coming in, eventually, you know, gamers are going to get tired of it, and then we could have another crash. We could have, like the Atari days. Nobody wants that. So it's really important that we give equal time, and, you know, to all the new game ideas coming out. And even in our industry, we're entering a phase for the first time where the majority of our industry is going to be entering retirement age in the next 10 to 20 years. And we don't know what's cool anymore, but a lot of us think we do. And we grew up with Star Wars. Like, yeah, it'd be really cool to, you know, have X-Wings and lightsabers. And well, I guess that's not a good analogy, but, you know, pick something.
X-Wings and lightsabers are always cool. Come on.
They're always going to be cool. But there's a lot of things like that. Like, sometimes when I'm writing dialogue for the game, I'll stick in a reference to an 80s movie. Yeah. And my newer writers will come to me and say, we know what you mean, Mark, but nobody gets that anymore. And so...
Going back to the revamp of the progression system.
Yep.
I mean, it's not just that you've redone it 3 times. It's that you've redone it 3 times in, you know, relatively short span of time. You know, you look at probably it seems, at least to me, I can't quite remember exactly, since I started the first time playing Firefall, which is after you had the play it on the PAX floor.
Oh, yeah.
And you get it. It seems like it's been since then you've done major revamps, whether it was the progression or anything. So that's fairly quick that you're doing those big sort of things. Does that help you make sure that you're tailoring it, or do you think you're giving it long enough to settle before you start making wholesale changes?
So you know, we like to iterate quickly. We say we want to fail fast, get all the suck out, so we can get to the cool sooner, right? So. You know, I think our beta testers would probably debate with you how long it feels, especially when you're actively playing the game. But I think in actuality, in dev terms, it's pretty fast. But we don't make these changes on a whim. And we don't make them just based on forum feedback or surveys that we send out, because that's only a percentage of our market. Turns out they're a pretty good percentage of that market that they reflect the majority of opinion. But we back that up because we mine an enormous amount of data on the back end. So we actually have you know, a doctor in psychology who handles all of our fun measurements in the game, and also our user testing, and we bring people in from the outside extensively. So we know pretty quickly what the weak points of the system are, and we give it, you know, we'll probably give it a good month or so to settle, and then we're off to the next iteration. And then each iteration, for a major change like this, we can move pretty fast. We can do, like this last patch and everything else was probably 6 to 8 weeks worth of work, plus testing. So I think we have gotten the iteration down. Part of it is because we don't bring systems to 100% completion, because if we did that, it'd be wasting potential work. So we get it out early, and we let the data tell us what's happening, and the forum feedback, and our great close-knit community, and that allows us to make the changes we need to.
So you're talking about innovation and in the game industry, and how, you know, as the average age of industry veterans increases, what do you think it is that the newer generation of designers they bring that's different than, you know, when I started gaming? What are they bringing different to the table than 20 years ago?
You know, to me, and it almost seems like what used to be considered surreal is now just the norm. Like and I'll give an example with cartoons. Like, you know, when I was growing up, cartoons literally told a story. You understood everything that was going on. It was very literal. And now you have cartoons where there's colors melting on the screen and random non sequiturs and things like this. And the kids love it, right? And I'm getting into it too. But if I had seen that, you know, when I was a kid growing up, I would have said, this is completely bizarre. I don't understand it. Now you've got creativity in games like World of Goo and, you know, Meat Boy and all this stuff. They would be considered completely odd and surreal back in the early days of gaming, and it's great to see that come in because it's from those ideas that we're going to get the new stuff. I mean, when I talk to veteran game designers like myself, so many times, and you know, I love them, but I hate hearing it's like, I would like to make a game like you know, this old game that I played, or I want to make this genre of game. It's like, well, can we think a little bit more outside of the box? And so in a lot of companies with a hierarchical structure, it's those veterans that are making the decisions. In our company, we try to spread that out through the roots of the company and the new hires, because we recognize that creativity and that new energy has got to come from younger entrants, new people into the gaming industry. And we don't want to do it just for us. We want to find ways to encourage and help other people doing it so we get more of these ideas. So now when I have a conversation with veteran game designers, I can be like, have you played this game? Have you played that game? These are things we didn't have when we were kids, and they're really interesting. Why don't we try something like that?
And you also, you know, use something that I didn't even know about 20 years ago, using the manga to tell some story about the game. Are you going to start bringing more PvE story elements into the game as you move further along into beta?
Yeah, you know, we created the manga because we said, this is a new IP, nobody knows anything about it. We have to get some context about the story out there. Let's do a manga. It was great to have Orson Scott Card and Emily Scott Card, his daughter, write it, and you know, Studio Udon to illustrate it. So it's a very high quality comic, and it'll be out later on iPad and on Ouya in probably the next week or so, as part of the Stage 5 app, which also hosts all of our videos. And so there's actually been this story that we've been writing for the past several years. Like I said, probably 5 years worth of story that we've been waiting to get in, but because we're still working on the core game systems, that's more important. We want to make sure that the core game systems are working, but now we're actually going to see more of the story come in, and I've got a very great writing partner that just came on board, you know, Richard Piercy, who was the writer for Spec Ops: The Line, and he brings a great narrative sense, and you know, we've broken the game up into episodes, and the first episode is something that we're working on right now, which is really exciting. Story is a huge part of the game. You're going to see much more lore come into it.
Awesome. And with the focus on the gameplay elements and then moving on to the story coming up, how comfortable are you now with the latest iteration? Are you feeling like everyone is a small step, or are you starting to feel like you're taking quite big leaps towards a product that you can move and say, no, it's not finished because it's never going to be finished, but that's ready to launch?
I think we've made huge strides forward, especially with the PvP, PvE split. It's sort of like stopped all the compromises we had to make for one or the other and just let each one be pure. I think the jury's still out on the actual implementation of the progression system we have. I think the idea is sound, but we won't know till we get the data back. And actually right now, we're kind of also dealing with the fact that only half the system is in. We have the manufacturing system, which is using a temporary UI, just so that people can make all the new items, because your gear defines what you can do in the game. But the whole knowledge tree, the research tree that allows you to learn and unlock those recipes and understand what they are, is missing. It's not in there yet. We're working on it right now. So I won't have the data in, you know, say the next month that we usually would, and I will have part of the data, and then I'm going to get a little more when the other pieces of UI come into play. But every time we've done this change, we look at the data, and it's been an exponential increase in player stickiness and player fun. So, I'm quite confident that our method is sound, and this method will increase fun again. But again, we're kind of in that halfway stage with that. The other stuff that's going into the build with all the new content and the new POIs that we've built in many local event areas, and what we've done with the melding tornado now leading into a wormhole into the melding, all that is something I'm really excited about. So there's plenty to do while we're in this halfway state with progression. The other thing is the whole battle frame hyperkinesis modes, right? The ultimates that they have are just a ton of fun. We're really confident in those, and people are seeming to love all the new battle frame abilities we've done since moving to unlock a battle frame model. So, obviously we're confident enough because we're now diving into the story aspect, so that we're ready to move on to the next phase. But this part still needs tuning.
So just in case somebody has been hiding under a rock and played Firefall and hasn't heard about the changes, these are pretty major changes that you've done to the battle frame system, completely removing the tier system. Can you give us a quick overview of what it is that you've done?
Yeah, so basically you had, depending on when you came into Firefall, we started off with levels, and we decided that's way too MMO-ish. We'd rather spend our XP on unlocks in tiers. And so you had tier 1 unlocks, and when you get to tier 2, you could choose a different frame path and then unlock abilities for that frame and perks for that frame. But we decided that wasn't giving the player enough customization, and they were asking for more and more. So we said, hey, let's take a little page from Minecraft here, and let's go really, really awesome on the crafting system. Let's go, Star Wars Galaxies on the resource end, and let's combine it with this sort of open-ended crafting thing where you can make, literally hundreds and hundreds of things. What's changed is that you no longer have these 5 frames. You've got 15, and there's more that are coming every month, and you'll be able to unlock them by getting piloting tokens. The other thing that's changed is you're no longer spending XP to unlock perks for your character. What you're doing is you're kind of increasing the stats of your battle frame, its mass, its CPU, and power capabilities. And as those things get more powerful, and you tend to specialize in 1 or maybe 2 of them, you will also find recipes that you can craft to take advantage of that and to min-max that system. So it's become this very deep, very rich PvE customization system, and there's always a new frame to try. So that's very different from most MMOs. It's like most MMOs stop at 12 classes and that's it. We're introducing classes at a phenomenal rate here. The other thing that's changed is a whole lot more PvE content. We have a rich focus on the PvE world now, so we've built 30 different sort of mini adventure areas that we call local events. They have dynamic events that spawn within them, so depending on when you go back, they change. We have tuned the thumpers so that it's now something where everyone can benefit. If you help out on a thumper, you're going to get a perk out of it, and it doesn't take away from the guys that drop the thumper. If you complete thumpers, there's huge bonuses now, so it really is a race to try to push it to 100%, and it's a lot harder to get it to 100% now. We split them into solo thumpers and to group thumpers, so you can choose if you want to solo and get resources or if you want to go with a group and get resources. You can see the thumpers on the map, so it's kind of like a looking for group mechanic, but we think a little more fun because you can see the thumper on the map, what type of thumper it is, what resources they're mining, and you can say, hey, I want to go there and help them out. So a tremendous, tremendous amount of change. Plus the new user experience, version 1.0 is in there, the Battle Lab, you can try out all the frames. It's a much gentler introduction to the game than we had before. So yeah, I mean, it's completely different. If you've haven't played Firefall in the past 3 months, this is really going to be a fresh experience for you, a whole new game, basically. So yeah, if I take you over to the manufacturing terminal, you'll see that it's completely different now. Instead of showing you a tech tree, one of the first things you'll notice is we have a lot more battle frames. Mm-hmm. And I can just cycle through these and see some of the differences. And some of them get pretty elaborate. We'll be working on more unique looks for them to make them stand out even more. This system really allows us to celebrate, each different frame and make it really unique. They have their own set of abilities, their own primary and secondary weapons. They play very differently from each other. The other thing that you're going to notice that's different is you can unlock these frames through pilot tokens. You need 10 of them to unlock it, or you can use red beans if you want to just take a shortcut. And so far, that's been very popular. We've been, just over the last 24 hours, seen a lot of unlocks with that. But pilot tokens you get by these little tokens here. And you get these. This is sort of more like your character sheet, if I were to use an RPG analogy, where you've got, you've got mass, you have power, and you have CPU availability. And you spend XP to increase the capacity. So you can see that the white bar indicates that as I unlock capacity, I can have a lot of, say, mass carrying capacity because I've lightened up my frame. What that allows me to do is go into the crafting system and actually craft gear that might be a little heavier, but it gives me a more powerful plasma gun. And so by investing in this, I could go really on the offensive. If I invest in CPU or other things, I'm going to be able to craft other gear that allows me to specialize in different things and tweak my abilities in different ways. So that's where the real change comes in. Before, you sort of unlocked perks and you weren't really manipulating these. Now these are the primary things that you're investing XP in. Then you'll also invest XP and resources in learning recipes. Now for the patch, we just made the recipes available to you right off the bat. So if I get to, am I a dev character? Probably not. I'm going to have to glide there. So the other thing you can see, I just wanted to point out briefly that you can now see these sort of thumper missions that are active, and you can kind of set waypoints to them. And so these are other people thumping around the area. You can also see the Chosen Invasion. Oh, the invasion's completely changed. I completely forgot to mention that. They now have much more of a siege mechanic. Instead of randomly attacking stuff, they'll lay down siege weaponry starting from the edge of the melding and coming in. And the two areas we're testing right now are up here in the northern shores and down here by Sunken Harbor. Okay, so I'm going to get to Copa. So I'm here. And Copa should be right over there.
Still one of my favorite things to do is jump around.
Yeah, it's really hard to play another MMO where you can't glide or jetpack or do any of those things. And what I like too is you can switch between first and third. So depending on how you like to play, I've always been a third person for PvE. When I go into PvP, I switch to first. It's just the way I'm wired. But it's totally up to you. And it's not a trivial thing to do. We put a lot of work into it in order to make that possible. That's why most games don't do it. It's just because it's prohibitively difficult. I'm so happy. I'm excited. This is the first time I'm playing since the patch was available. So I'm like, oh, let's check this out. So if it's not a completely organized walkthrough, I apologize, but I'm just geeking out over our own stuff right now.
And you get to play with the touchpad, too, which is always a little bit more of a challenge than a mouse.
I always play with a touchpad.
Really?
I love the Razer Blades. I have the original one and the new one. And except for PvP, which I switched to a mouse, I do everything from here. And we actually have been developing a custom interface for this. Cool. That I wish was loaded because all my abilities would be here.
Yeah.
And then we have different mouse modes too. So if you don't like the mouse version of it, it's got like an analog joystick mode too that you can use. So expect to see that when the game launches. We've been working closely with Razer on that. So yeah, and this has plenty of horsepower to run Firefall. We have like a 40% increase in this patch alone in performance, and we up the graphics fidelity. All the shaders have been improved and everything else. So you don't see that often where the graphics go up and the performance goes up. So this is our work in progress. See, it actually says that. It says, listen, we want to get your feedback on this before we design the whole thing. So you can see that there's a lot of different recipes here. And you've got, different modules you can create. And what we've done is all modules are fed, all components are fed by subcomponents, which determine different stats of the item you're creating. So a gun at the earlier recipes might only require 2 components and modify 2 things. At the highest level, they'll require 4 to 5 components, so you can really, as you get more familiar with the system, fine-tune it. Manufacturing queue is the same. So basically, if I load up, let me see if my character has anything I can make here. Type modules. So if I want to make a stock Tiki Thumper, I have no resources to make it. But this, I don't know if you've seen this thumper. This is a founder stretch goal reward.
Yeah.
So we hit it, and so every founder now has access to a unique skin thumper, and it has stuff along with it. Okay, so this is where I would manufacture stuff. The new UI, which you saw in the presentation that's developing, tells you much more about what it is you're going to create. But for right now, we just gave you all the recipes because there actually will be a research crafting tree that will let you map out what you want to specialize in equipment. And of course, we want this to be a really player-driven economy because all the items are made in our world. We want a lot of trade, a lot of auctions, and things like that in the future. So what you're seeing is just the beginnings of that system. And like I said, there's tons of these locations hidden around the world, and when you go near them, you get special missions. And we'll do even more with them later. We're not done with the amount of dynamic events we want occurring in these areas. So the idea is that we want Firefall basically to be a different experience every time you log into it. Died. Okay, maybe the trackpad isn't ideal. Oh no, and they totally sieged me. And now we're following a Nautilus. Okay. Harbor's fine. Wow. Thump Dump's under siege. Can we get there in time? Okay, maybe if I use my dev character. Yes! It's working! Go Ops team. Okay, so this is the new user experience. Looks like it started me off because I just logged in with this guy since the patch.
Yeah.
So we used to just plop you in the Copa in a battle frame and say, hey, go have fun. But now there's this whole tutorial area. So Arrow comes and greets you. She's on your Ares team, and she's going to take you through this training area that they've got built up here.
But you actually added more with this new press.
All right, Arrow, what are we doing? Some sound. I got headphones plugged in.
Remember, Sin allows you to see in both first and third person. Even though you're not wearing a battle frame yet, we're going to cover some movement basics to piloting a frame. First up is crouching. While crouched, move forward past the turret. Don't worry, the charges aren't lethal. But, they might stimulate. Very good. Crouching can also be used to navigate in tight spaces or to dodge incoming enemy fire. Speed is essential during Ares operations. Sprint to the end.
We also have the new waypoint indicators that kind of show you where it's going. If they disappear, you can push F again, which is our sin marker, and it brings up all your recent sin information.
And is that in the game world as well, or just
Yes, in the game world. So when you get missions, it'll drive you. You can hit the F key, and it'll lay out a path to it, which really helps because New Eden's a very mountainous area.
So does it take that into account and path you there, or is it a straight line?
No, it'll path you there. And if you know how to take the shortcuts with a jetpack, you can go ahead and do that.
I remember when we did the preview video with starts with a C. Oh, I'm trying to remember his name. Anyways, we were running through the world, and he hit a cliff that he forgot about, so we got stuck. We had to go around it.
Yeah, this way you
world.
It is a big world, and you know, there's more areas planned when you push back the melding.
Okay, let's see how well you fly.
Okay, so you get your first jetpack here.
Distinct advantage over most of your enemies. Greater distances and heights require a longer burn. Remember, traveling vertically expends less energy than does moving forward while rising.
So this just teaches you the basics of movement, and you know, for a lot of our veteran players, it's kind of redundant, but it's not really meant for them. It's meant for people new to an MMO that's a shooter, and but this Battle Lab Simulator is actually going to be something you can come back to later in the game. So as we release new frames, you could test out the virtual versions of them here. So that's something that veterans will be interested in using. So you can try any of the classic archetypes. You start the game with 5 frames right off the bat, and you unlock the others through piloting tokens or red beans.
And are those 5 the closest to the traditional frames that you had before?
Yes, they are the traditional archetype frames. Okay, so this is the simulation room. I can sort of activate the different challenges, like I'll do overcharge here, and it teaches you the ability. That's the other thing we didn't have before. People didn't understand what abilities they had.
Right. And is this something that you can come back to if you've taken a break from the game for a while?
Yeah, actually, if you've taken a break from the game, you will automatically be put into this system.
Yeah.
And so, but you can leave at any time. You're not totally restricted here. Because we didn't want to, like, you know, stick you with something that you already knew. But I think that, you know, when we put the other frames here and you're able to come back to this room, it's going to be really great for people who are deciding if they want to unlock a frame for themselves or not.
Mm-hmm. Try before you buy.
Try before you buy. Try before you put all your XP into it.
Right.
Because you can do it either way. You can either unlock it through pilot tokens.
Go ahead and give it a try. It won't bite. The new use scans your image into its core processors in order to provide you with appropriate appearance options. Highlight your head in the display. On the right is a list of appearance-altering options. Go ahead and select one of the options. Not all of these options are free.
So you can still switch between your battle frames.
Used by Ares operators to equip their battle frames. Equip a battle frame before you head into the hangar. Trust me, you don't want to move around New Eden without one.
Now you get introduced to Oil Spill, who's your dropship pilot, and Fixer. So when you manufacture stuff, it's actually him back on the manufacturing area making the stuff for you.
Right.
So you come to me when you're ready now.
All right. So the new user experience, this is just the first part of it, because after drops you into Copa, there's actually a series of tutorial missions that we're creating that will teach you how to do the crafting and teach you how to do the battleframe progression. Because most people understand crouch and shoot, all that. They want to know what's unique about the game, and that's the part that we're still working on.
And more in depth than the, you know, the quick little things that you did.
Yes, yeah,
before.
those were just quick little signs, little stickers basically that said do this, but this will actually be missions that go around it. And I can see that we're stuck again on the loading screen. Sorry about that.
That's a good problem to have.
Yeah,
right?
There's a lot of people on. We've basically quadrupled our concurrency for this patch.
So when you find 10 minutes, half an hour of time, when you can jump into the game where you're not tasked with testing something specific, what do you like to do?
Okay, my wife and I really like to find the rare resources when they crop up because they're on a cycle in our game. If something rare pops up, it can be mined out and not appear again for, like, you know, several days or a week. So we will go racing around and collect this stuff. But now that we have this rich crafting system, there's all this stuff we can make with it. So I anticipate that we'll be doing that. I mean, the patch just went live yesterday. I've been here. But my wife is currently downloading the patch, and we plan to go out and do that. And also the new PvE areas. There's a ton of them. And the tornadoes are my favorite. It's the encounter that you know, I pitched the designers and we worked on it a little bit together. And you know what happens with the tornado now is we always had the tornadoes. They would move through the world. They would aggro on thumpers and create extra fun there. But once you take out a tornado, it opens up a wormhole into the melding. And where it goes will eventually depend on a couple of things. But right now it takes you to what we call the treasure room, which is kind of like a bonus stage. It's like this melding bubble that collapses over a short period of time, and resources spawn in the area, and strange melding creatures spawn in the area, and you kind of have to take them all out and grab as much as you can and get out of there before the bubble collapses. So I'm really looking forward to trying that. But for us, it's really about gearing up our frames and exploring all the new things that there are to do in Firefall. I guess I could say I'm a real big PvE player. PvP has gotten really interesting too. It is much truer to the old Quake days. Movement is faster now. The frames are all stock, so there's no discrepancies. It's really moving more towards an esports theme. I'm probably getting a little too old to have the dexterity to keep up with that. But for one thing, I mean, I've always loved that style of shooter gameplay versus what it's become, which is kind of like spray and pray, get the jump on the other guy, one hit dead, you know, and the skill factor has been played down a lot. So I'm going to give that another shot because I like the old school shooter style stuff.
Awesome. Well, thanks for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
And I'll grab something in front of there, and I can